I went away from my job in Pittsburgh for the weekend of July 4th. I met up with some travelers at the Pittsburgh Internal Airport and we drove up to Ridgeway PA in a rental car. I was there for the weekend, and while camping down in the Bear Creek Valley I heard that somebody was throwing a rave up in the main, Owl's Nest, parking lot. I chose not to go. The night of July 4th I was walking with a good friend I hadn't seen in a long time. He had been a soldier for the U.S. Army until he got kicked out for smoking pot. Anyway, he convinced me to go up to the rave that night in the parking lot. He and I walked up to the A camp that was nearby to get a ride to the main parking lot about 2 miles away. I bought 2 hits for blotter from an older hipped-out brother and gave one to my friend. We were speculating about the authenticity of the stuff I'd just bought when some dude and his passenger asked us if we wanted a ride. We hopped right in and drove off for the parking lot where the rave was. We were cruising along with some strangers who were probably already tripped out. And here there was some other guy walking along the road. The driver stopped and asked the guy if he wanted a ride. So this other dude with a book bag gets in the back seat with us. He was rather studious looking. He was wearing glasses and had a button-down shirt with a collar. After we had went along a bit he asked the driver if he wanted any dose. The driver and his passenger declined. My friend Hayden and I looked at each other and I then asked if we could have some. This dude pulls out a chemistry lab storage bottle with a dropper at the top of it. This bottle was brown glass and probably about 1000 ml. He says, "This is the washout from the basins that they use to make LSD. Some elders gave it to me and told me to pass it on." My friend and I, thinking it was diluted, each took about 2 droppers full of the liquid. I distinctly remember swishing the liquid around in my mouth. So Hayden and I were dropped off at the parking lot, and I began to feel the effects of the L starting to kick in. We found out that we had quite a way to go to get to the party. Hayden walked off and I sat down beside someone's dark green VW bus. I enjoyed laying there and I felt its personality communing with me. I got up and went to walk down the road to the rave. The effects were coming on strong now. A group was a little bit ahead of me and someone had some glowsticks on a string spinning them around. I kept thinking that they had lightsabers. I caught up to the group, and I could hear a girl breathing across the road from me. I moved closer to her. I felt that I needed to protect her. I was her bodyguard. I had no idea who she was. I asked her name and she told me it was Amy. We walked further down the road. Where was Hayden? The moon was full, the silver light casting everything in a spacey glow. What a wonderful time I was going to have. I was a little scared from time to time, but the fear faded quickly. The thing I was most concerned about was becoming confused and disoriented. The group I was walking with finally got to the rave. There at the entrance to the lidl space off the road was Hayden. I hugged him and he laughed. He kept poking me to see if I was really there. He said something to me about being naked, so I walked over behind the setup. There was a U-Haul and a gasoline generator with a tent canopy set up for the DJ booth. I walked behind there and took off my clothes. That's when the thoughts invaded. Hayden had been in the army. He had been in communications. He had somehow taken control of a government communications satellite. Here he was playing techno music on the World Communication Network. He was the DJ. I was running around naked yelling at the people over at the DJ booth to leave him alone. Then I thought that I was in the making of the next Star Wars. Episode 2. Frank Oz, the voice of Yoda, had died, and I was the only one who could talk like Yoda. I was running around talking like Yoda. I thought my friends Lori and Melissa were there. I remember talking to a girl who I thought was Lori. That's when the corporations took over. Since Hayden had stolen the satellite, the top companies of the world wanted to restore peace. An Asian girl sat near me and mentioned something about Ford. She was the daughter of the top Ford exec. For some reason she got mad and went to walk away. I tried to get her to stay there. So I followed her to the entrance. And there was Hayden. He talked to me for a little bit and I asked him to help me find my clothes. After a while he looked down at me and exclaimed, "You don't have any clothes." "I know. Help me find them, they're lost." I did find my shoes, and I walked back out to the dirt roadway. I was looking at the moon, and I kept seeing a laser beam shoot across my vision, all a dark side of the moon. So I walked off in the direction I thought led back to the main parking lot. I was walking over near the edge of the road, and I entered the woods. I was feeling kinda funny. I stumbled into the brush, and I remember crashing over and falling down. I was dying. My mind drifted off into a Tolkien book. I could see the words written in that elegant text. I was part of the earth and my body melted, rotted away, and for 1,000 years I was a hillside. Then water and wind pushed away the dirt and I was flat again. It was like I was reliving that part of the earth's memory. I became conscious lying on my back staring up at the stars through the canopy of leaves. I had the feeling I was lying in a net. Some people were talking to me. This was a test. I was being trained for the special underground organization that Hayden belonged to. I was held in a net and I felt my mind drift away. I became a two-dimensional object. I was a downward spiral. I was spinning and drifting downwards. Images came to my mind of two separate entities. A goat and a dove were pulling in opposite directions. I had a message sent into my brain. There is no greater wrong than a child torn between the parents of two different religions. I spiraled off some more and I became the film of oil on a stagnant stream, and I looked up to see a dragonfly land above me. Its compound eye glittered in the sunlight. I then became one of the facets of the eye. The words of Albert Einstein entered my mind. I just want to know the thoughts of God. Everything else is just details. I saw Einstein as he arrived in heaven. He asked God what the answer to life was, and God said, yes. As I became coherent, I thought that God had let me travel back through time and space. I had been allowed to go back to 1978. I was allowed to travel to San Francisco, California in that year. I got up and broke free from my net. As I walked out of the woods, I thought I could surf. I ran down the road as fast as I could, and I stopped a guy standing beside the road. "What year is it?" He looked at me kind of funny and answered, 1999, dude. So I tried to find my clothes again, but no dice. At least I had my shoes. Now, if I could only find which way I was supposed to go. I walked for a bit and ran into a DEP officer. I walked over to him and asked him how to get to the parking lot. He issued me a ticket. I didn't have any pockets, so I slipped it in the window of a parked car along the road. I kept walking, and if I saw a car approach, I would hide in the woods. I stopped by another car along the road, and I asked a guy that was camping there for a pair of pants I could wear. He hooked me up with some pajamas pants. I finally made it to the parking lot after an eternity of walking. I had lost Hayden, but I knew I'd see him again. I went over to the rental car I had come up in, and laid on the back window. I looked up at the stars, and I saw the Milky Way smeared across the darkness. I fell asleep, glad to be out of the whole mess. Someone nearby was playing some Grateful Dead on a car stereo, and I fell asleep to Jerry's guitar. I woke up a little later and I was freezing. I got up and walked around. 2 cars over, someone had left their window down. I looked inside and decided that they wouldn't mind if I slept for a little bit inside. I opened the door and crashed out again on their back seat. When I woke up in the morning, I rolled up the window of the car and walked down to the valley to meet my traveling companions. What a trip!